He's been picked out. Socks down to his ankle. Picks out Stansfield. That's the hat-trick. And that's what dreams are made of.
Hello everybody and welcome to Park Life, the official Exeter City podcast. What a week. City beat Premier League side Luton Town on Tuesday, so they're through to the Carabao Cup round of 16, where they'll face Middlesbrough at St James Park. The Grecians also return to league action on Saturday, so we've got a lot to get through with some excellent guests. Let's get straight into it. Coming up in today's show, I chat to Xpression FM's Deputy Station Manager Mikhail Shklover about City's heroic victory over Premier League side Luton Town. And I also ask him about his predictions for Saturday's home match against Northampton. I also speak to City winger Demetri Mitchell about his man of the match performance against the Hatters, and we also chat a little bit about his ambition to represent Jamaica on the international stage. I also get the lowdown on Northampton from Danny Brothers, the host of the It's All Cobblers to Me podcast, as we preview City's next game against Northampton Town on Saturday. Finally, I speak to author Matt Riley about his new book, Kit and Community, where Exeter City are his reference point for a community-driven football club with a one-club philosophy. First up, I'm joined by broadcaster Mikhail Shklover, who covers Exeter City for the University of Exeter's radio station, Expression FM. He was at Tuesday night's game, watching the action from the Big Bang. Michael, welcome to Park Life. A pleasure to have you on. Tuesday night's victory over Luton Town was one of the most significant wins in Exeter City's recent history. It's the first time the club have beaten Premier League opposition since 1980, so you'd have to be 43 years old to remember the last time City beat a top-tier side. Now, just describe that night for us. I know you were there.
No, incredible. I was at the Big Bang towards that right-hand side, so I was actually very, very close to where that winning goal was scored by Demetri Mitchell, and he obviously ran to that corner as well, so no, absolutely magnificent. I was talking to a number of people. Everyone was really excited. I haven't seen the Big Bang so alive, perhaps since that day when we beat Barrow at the Hellock Turf, April 2021. Absolutely incredible. And I was talking to the people after the game, and, the mood was, let's see you all in round 4. And there's the confidence, because after beating a Premier League team, goodness knows what we can do in the next round. Of course, the draw happening tonight on Wednesday after all the other fixtures are concluded in the third round of the Carabao Cup. So really looking forward to the draw. Perhaps we can get another interesting home tie, maybe finally an away day for the most loyal fans here at Exeter City.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely. But in terms of the game, Luton may have dominated possession. They certainly did. But I don't think they dominated the action, the chances. The Hatters managed just 3 shots on target, all of which were saved by Vujami Sinisalo, despite starting the likes of Corley Woodrow, Tahith Chong, and one-time World Cup hero Tim Krul as well. They still managed to score the winning goal, did Exeter, and perhaps more impressively, they kept a clean sheet too. An all-round brilliant performance.
I agree, Tom, and I think as the game went on, that small glimmer of hope that was present in the opening of the game, that grew and grew. People became more and more hopeful. In the opening, 10 or 15 minutes, I thought Luton had all the possession, they had all of the ball. Every long ball that Sinisalo tried to play toward James Scott at the back for Luton, Anderson and Mengri would win all the headers. It was very difficult for Exeter to try and get anything in the first 10-20 minutes. Of course, Luton coming very, very close and hitting the crossbar early on. But after that, I thought Exeter tried to grow into the game, had more of the ball, had a few chances. Obviously, James Scott notably had a good opportunity where he had a strike from distance. And as the game went on, people became more and more hopeful. At first, it was, can we survive all the way until penalties, perhaps, where we may have a chance? But as the game went on, people got more and more hopeful. Exeter had the chances, Exeter had more of the ball. I thought Demetri Mitchell, who of course went on to score the winning goal, was exceptional on that right-hand side, playing as a fullback. Gary Caldwell mentioned it in his interview that Exeter started as a back 5, and I thought that was the right decision. So yeah, as the game went on, Exeter became more and more hopeful and grew into the game.
I think Gary agreed that when that James Scott chance from about 30 yards out just swooped past Tim Krul just over the left post of Krul's goal, that was probably the tipping point where most of the momentum, I suppose, swung towards Exeter. And from that moment, I mean, it's clear to see what happened. Is that something that you saw as well?
I agree, Tom. And after that, there were more gaps in the back for Luton. Exeter tried to play those 1-2 on the right-hand side, on the left. And another thing I want to compliment Gary Caldwell's side, they stayed focused at the back, because often so happens when the favourite team allows you to create those chances, you can perhaps lose focus at the back a little bit. Exeter did not. Yes, Sinisala made one really good save in the first half, close to the half-hour mark. But apart from that, Exeter looked very solid at the back, and this is where I think we once again have to give credit to Will Aimson, and more notably to Fitzwater, who of course came into the starting lineup to replace Pierce Sweeney, and I thought had a really good game. He was playing as that leading centre-back, and if you look at the fact Exeter were playing as a back five, an extremely important role to say the least.
It's not often that Exeter City make the headlines, but I think that's exactly what happened over the course of 90 minutes yesterday, and seeing the reaction today. City received national praise for their triumphs on Tuesday. I know Ali McCoist and Neil Warnock were heaping praise on Gary Caldwell over on TalkSport, whilst Demetri Mitchell was the main feature on the BBC Sport homepage. This victory has caused a seismic shift, really, in how people view Exeter City Football Club. Do you agree with me that, well, I think that it's clear to everyone that we're not here just to take part. We're here to really go far in this competition now.
I agree, and I think that's how it always happens when a team, perhaps from the third tier, from the fourth tier, surprises. And you mentioned it, Tom. Exeter City have done it for the first time in a long, long while, and they've done it in style. They deserved the win. It wasn't like Exeter was sitting in their own half defending. Exeter played an even game with a Premier League side. And Luton themselves, a team that made headlines not long ago in the summer when they got promoted to the Premier League. So I think Exeter City fully deserved all the credit. And perhaps this is not the end.
Well, we'll see, won't we? You mentioned the atmosphere at St James Park last night, Tuesday night. I think I speak for all Exeter City fans when I say Tuesday night was a really special night in City's recent history. The supporters did a fantastic job to create an electric atmosphere, and I think it really showed our club off in the best possible light.
No, definitely. And I think the fans at the Big Bank deserve their support. Of course, the Stansfield shirt again displayed at the Big Bank. I think that's something that can emotionally really stimulate the players before such a big night, especially we know that Exeter City were coming off the back of a very difficult week. Of course, having lost 9-0 to Reading in the EFL Cup, and then, of course, losing 3-0 on the weekend to Oxford United and dropping down the league table. So we were worried that Exeter perhaps might have lost a little bit of momentum going into this tie against the Premier League side. I think the fans stood behind the team, as they always have done. Stansfield shirt, all the flags, of course, the sellout. The fans were there. I came with about half an hour to go to the game, so I did come quite late, and the Big Bank was already full. Well, I think 7,500 fans, the overall number.
Unbelievable.
That was announced at the end. For the first time in a while, I saw the Adam Stansfield stand completely packed, not a single empty seat in any of the four stands. So incredible atmosphere. And as the game progressed, the fans really, really got behind the team, as they always do. Absolutely incredible experience to be inside that Big Bank to support the team. And even after the game, it doesn't happen often. The players went to the Big Bank and spent quite a significant amount of time applauding to the fans, breathing in that moment, really experiencing the occasion. And I myself stayed all the way until the end, and I thought it was absolutely lovely scenes there in front of the Big Bank.
Well, one man who certainly embraced the atmosphere towards the end of the game at 90 minutes was Demetri Mitchell, who obviously played the main character in last night's display. A brilliant performance, a great goal, and, well, let's not talk about the red card, but what a fantastic game for Demi.
It's incredible. He was really good, Demetri Mitchell. Of course, a brilliant season in this campaign, was very good when he came in last season, perhaps despite the early skepticism. And yesterday, I have to say, the position he was playing in with the formation, with the circumstances, it was an incredibly difficult position to play in, because he had to be very careful to make sure once he goes forward to advance, to support James Scott, to support Watts, to support Taylor and Carroll, he had to be very careful. I know Zach Jules did not go that far up. Demi Mitchell did. He tried to create that threat. Of course, he was there to score the goal, and it deserves all the credit. He wasn't scared. He was very brave to go through that right-hand side and to create the threat. Of course, the red card, Gary Caldwell did mention it in the interview that he thought both bookable offences were a bit too soft. And I have to say, Tom, I do agree with Exeter City's manager. I thought the first yellow card maybe deserved, but the second one, I thought the Luton Town player went down a bit too easily. Of course, a foul. Whether that is a second yellow card, very questionable.
Looking forward, and City will be hoping to take this momentum and use it against Northampton Town, who visit the park on Saturday. The Cobblers haven't had a great time of it so far this season, I think that's fair to say. They find themselves just 2 points clear of relegation after 8 games. They've clearly got talent. They got promoted last season, but how do you see this one playing out?
I mean, Exeter have to be the favourites, I think. Exeter are currently 6th in the division, of course, enjoyed a really, really good start. Northampton, perhaps as expected, are fighting for relegation. Of course, had their fixture against Chelsea under-21s in the Football League Trophy yesterday, lost 4-3 on penalties. In the league as well, Northampton haven't won since August, so they haven't won any games in September since they managed to come victorious in 2 consecutive fixtures against Peterborough and Cheltenham. So Exeter have to be the favourites in this game. Of course, I remember back when Exeter played Northampton at St James Park in December 2021. That day, a header from Podge Hammond gave the Grecians hope, but Exeter were on the losing side at the end of 90 minutes. But things have changed since then, and the Grecians, a more experienced side in League One, of course, having spent an extra season compared to Northampton in the 3rd tier, will be the favourite for Saturday.
Yeah, they are a little bit of a bogey team, aren't they, for Exeter City? You think back to that dreaded 4-0 defeat in the League Two playoff final back in 2020, and it could go either way, I think, in this one. But finally, I know Expression FM have got a whole lot planned with Exeter City this season. Just talk us through what content you'll be producing and where our listeners can find it.
No, definitely, Tom. Of course, we are back. Our first commentary on our return to St James Park was Cheltenham. My co-head of sport last year, Sam Parks, who previously featured as well on Park Life in episode 2, has led that one. But we've got 2 new wonderful heads of sport for the upcoming year, Joseph Terry and Niall O'Mara. So they'll be leading all the commentaries on every single match day at home, possibly some away fixtures as well. Apart from that, we are also working very closely with Exeter City Women. Our first commentary back was, of course, the SJP designated fixture against Moneyfield. So please give that one a listen as well. A very exciting clash with an absolutely packed main stand. I really enjoyed the occasion. I thought the fans did as well. They were magnificent, probably as good as at the Luton's game. So yeah, definitely listen out to those, and looking forward to what this year will bring, Tom, here at Expression FM.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us, Michael. Great to hear your insight.
No, thank you very much for having me, Tom.
Next up, I'm joined by man of the moment, Demetri Mitchell. Since arriving at the club in January, Demi has become one of Gary Caldwell's key assets, delivering consistent goal involvement week in, week out. On Tuesday night, he scored one of Exeter City's most significant goals in recent history. His strike knocking Premier League Luton Town out of the Carabao Cup and sending City into the 4th round for the first time since 1989. Demi, welcome to Park Life. Thanks so much for joining us. What a week. Tuesday night was special, very special, and your goal was one of the most significant in Exeter City's recent history. Just sum up how it feels.
Yeah, man, it's just ecstatic, after the game to beat Luton, a Premier League side, and make history for the club. Or not make history, but kind of rewrite history in terms of getting to the 4th round. It's massive.
Yeah, huge. Is it really sunk in yet? I mean, to score that goal at that time against Premier League opposition to reach the 4th round of the League Cup for the first time since 1989. Come on, that's stuff of legends, really.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, I don't know, maybe it's not sunk in and maybe I don't realise the importance of the goal. For me, it was a cup tie against a Premier League side who were struggling, and it was a chance where we could turn them over and they'll be low on confidence. We lost the last game, but we're in the top 6, and I think form's a big thing in football, and if you can kind of capitalise on it, then you can make crazy things happen like last night.
For sure. Gary said that he had a game plan going into it, but what was the mindset like in the dressing room before the game? Was there a genuine belief that the team could cause a huge upset?
For me, I was up for it massively. I even changed some of the songs for the playlist for. I had "Lose Yourself" by Eminem. I'm not really an Eminem fan, but I know it gets a few people going. I had some drill music on, which is like hard UK rap. So I changed up the music for the day, and it worked. But
Did you?
no, the manager had he did have specific tactics that we changed a lot from how we usually play. I suppose you've got to give that respect sometimes to the teams that are playing a couple of leagues above you, and we've got a bunch of lads that they all want to work for the manager and dig deep, and whatever they're asked to do, they'll try and do it to the best of their ability, and that's what you saw last night.
Could you see that belief around the dressing room before the game then? Is that something you could visually see and feel as well?
Sometimes it's hard to gauge how other people are feeling because obviously nobody wants to give off the impression that they're nervous but for me, I didn't have an ounce of nerves. I'd been playing well, building up to the game, and I just felt confident. And David Perkins said show them what you can do and get at them. Don't treat it any differently to a league game, and that's how I felt like I did treat it, just like if I was playing against Oxford or Leyton Orient, and just get at people like I like to do.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, we've spoken about your goal, but I think that pretty much sums up the difference you've made to the club since arriving in January. It's been a brilliant start for you, a brilliant year for you, really. Do you feel like Exeter City feels a bit more like home now?
Yeah, coming from well, obviously I'm from Manchester, but moving from Edinburgh, which I had a bad not season, bad year in terms of injuries and new managers coming in and then starting the year off, moving to Exeter, it kind of was a fresh start for myself with the new year 2023 and moving to Exeter. So I fully embraced that. My family, my missus, they all said it was a positive move, and I'd worked with the manager previously at Hibs only for a short period of time, but I'd also done some work with him on the off season before I signed for Blackpool, which was 2-3 years ago now. So I think doing that with him kind of made him realize that I've got ability myself, and it made me be able to build a relationship with him.
It was a huge step making that move to League One football when Gary asked you to sign. And I'm assuming you have no regrets about that, of course.
No.
But how big was Gary in that decision? Obviously, a guy that you had worked with before. Just tell me how that move came about and why he wanted you specifically.
Yeah, so I'll give you a little backstory. When I left Manchester United, I was without a club and hadn't played for 18 months due to an injury plus COVID, which kept me out for a season and a half. My agent kind of put me in contact with Gary, who wasn't working at the time, and I think he was looking to get back into coaching. He did some sessions with me in Wilmslow, just like me and him, one-to-one sessions to get myself back fit after a long time out, which enabled me to get a club, which was Blackpool at the time. And then the following season after that, we got promoted. I hit Gary back up and I said, like, can I come and do the same thing with you if you're not busy? And we went to Mottram Hall, done some sessions there. This time there was a few other players, but it was a few of us. And since then we kind of had an understanding, and I enjoyed training with him. He got a lot out of me, and come to January, he's gone as the assistant at Hibernian, and I wasn't really playing at Blackpool too much, so I kind of wanted to go and play some football. And a person that I felt comfortable with that was going to give me opportunities, even though as the assistant, it helps a lot having somebody that you know and that respects your ability as a player to go and express yourself. So I've gone to Hibernian. After 4 weeks, I've gotten injured, and Gary's left along with Sean, who signed me. So it was a difficult period for myself after being injured, and trying to come back into the fold with the new managers was very hard. And came to Exeter, came to the January transfer window again a year on, and Gary was interested to take me here, and the rest has written itself.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's a great story, it must be said, and I don't think things could have really gone any better for you. But
No.
all of this positive chat has got me thinking about what's around the corner for Demetri Mitchell. In recent weeks, you've spoken of your desire to represent Jamaica on the international stage, something that I think is really exciting. I think you said just a few days ago that this was prompted by a recent visit to the country. Just talk us through your decision and how you came to that.
So I'd visited the country for the first time. It's my grandparents that are from Jamaica. So my dad was actually born in England, but we have a quite close-knit family, and we used to all gather around and the Sunday roast every Sunday. And it was a country it's close to my heart, even though I've never been. It's close to my heart. And my dad, even though he was born here, he says he's Jamaican fully. And yeah, but I went to Jamaica for the first time, and when you go on holiday, that's in somewhere like Jamaica, it's a resort that's got everything looks perfect. Your room's got a jacuzzi in it. You're by the beach, and it's not really the real country. So I didn't really get to experience it for the first few days. And then I ventured out after 3 or 4 days of the holiday, and I've got to meet some locals. I've gone on some excursions, and then the real moment was when I went and met some locals who were I've got a picture with them. I'll share that with you. Who were at a shop that had their own shop, just selling like off license, and they said they remembered me from when I was at Manchester United, and I thought, wow, like for people out here to remember my time at United, which I only played one game, was massive for me. And yeah, I think that kind of resonated with me a lot, that this was a country I'd like to play for after that moment.
It's a brilliant story. Obviously, you represented England at youth levels, but you've come to this sort of realization now after visiting the country that is what you want to do. Obviously, City had 2 players on international duty earlier this month, Phil Sinisalo, Ilmari Niskanen. They both represented Finland. Did seeing those 2 representing their country encourage you to really push for this opportunity to represent Jamaica?
I wouldn't say that prompted me. Like I said, I already kind of made my decision up when I went on holiday, but those 2 were flying. Obviously, Amy's got injured, and disappointing. But having internationals on your side, it's always a good sign that that you've got quality in the building, and they've done well. And yeah, I'm happy for them.
Absolutely. What is the sort of current likelihood that you'll be in the manager's plans for the next international break in October when Jamaica play Grenada and Haiti in the CONCACAF Nations League? Have you had those conversations with the manager?
I've spoken to people that work within the association, and the positive conversations, but they do have a strong squad. I've gone to the embassy, or where you go and apply for your passport, and I've brought my nana's passports and my nana's marriageable certificates to get that through as quickly as possible. So I'm not sure how quickly it happens. So it could come through the post tomorrow. It could come through the post in 6 weeks. I'm not sure, but they've got a good squad. They've got the players like Leon Bailey, Casey Palmer, Antonio. So it's not an easy squad to get into. It's a team that's full of quality.
But it would be a great opportunity if you could get there. Something that is clearly very exciting. So good luck with that, of course. But finally, just focusing back on the Carabao Cup. Of course, I've got to finish with this. We're recording this at about 7:30, 7:45 now. We'll find who City faces in the round of 16 in just a couple of hours. So 2 questions, really. Firstly, who do you want to face? And I'll take an informed guess that it might be Manchester United. And do you think the squad has what it takes to get into the quarterfinals, which seems crazy to think?
Yeah, so the first question is, you answered correctly there. Yeah, I'd love to get Manchester United away at Old Trafford, or home. I think we'd probably have a better chance of beating them at home with the fans and the stadium and just everything around it. Gives us that little bit more of a edge going into it. Not an edge over Manchester United, but it gives us more of an edge rather than playing at Old Trafford. But I'd love to go and play them away from home and play in front of the United fans again and showcase my ability. Second, yeah, definitely. Like I said, if we at home, I back us against anyone. You saw against Luton that they didn't really create too much, even though they had a lot of possession. I think we had more shots on target than them. So I back ourselves against anyone. The players that we've got, myself, Yannick, Jamesy, Addy when he's fit, Dion coming back. We've got players that can make something happen like that. So yeah, I back us against anybody.
It's a really exciting squad. Where do you think?
Not sure about Man City, but we'll give it a go.
Where do you think you'll end up at the end of the season? Obviously, the team have great ambitions in the League Cup, but you've got to focus on the league as well. Northampton on Saturday is going to be a tough one. I know you're ineligible, but where do you see this season going?
I've watched it back actually, and I thought it was 2 soft yellow cards. To be honest with you, I was a bit disappointed when I watched it back. But the referee actually said to me, he said, I was going to give you a second yellow for going into the crowd after you scored. So after that, anything I did, whether it was the smallest foul, I was going to get a second yellow. But this season, obviously the cup runs, you take them as they come. It's one-off games that you're just trying to win. And I think that's the way we've taken this whole season, one game after another. You know, obviously you have ambitions personally and for the team, but in this league, 2 games can change your ambitions like that. So for me, I just like to focus on the next game and keep an eye on. I do like to keep an eye on the league table, I can't lie. And after losing last weekend, I'm sure the boys will put it right on Saturday.
For sure. Well, let's hope so. And well, we'll find out on Saturday, won't we? Thank you so much for joining me,
No
Demi.
problem, man.
Next, I'm joined by Danny, the host of the It's All Cobblers to Me podcast, to preview City's next game against Northampton Town on Saturday. Danny, welcome to Park Live. Great to have you on. I want to talk a bit about Northampton's season thus far. After promotion from League Two last year, I think it was natural that quite a few fans thought Northampton might be fighting towards the bottom end of the League One table. That seems to be what has transpired after 8 games. You haven't won since August. Just paint a picture for us on how Northampton have started life back in the 3rd division.
It's been up and down for sure. We're missing a cutting edge up front for sure. That's probably the main thing that we're lacking. But having said that, we've been in every game. So we've been in sort of when we have been defeated, it's been by the odd goal. We've been creating chances in every game. And I think if you come into it and you don't create chances, that's when you start to worry. And it's just a matter of putting the chances away. Now, we've been close to a lot of good teams in this league, and in terms of our games, we've had a massive derby win against Peterborough, which was completely unexpected, no matter who you ask. And I don't know if you saw that goal, but it was just absolute scenes at the end, and that's carried us through quite a lot of the jubilation of the season. We start to settle in a little bit now, but we're just noticing that it's such a difference in terms of teams taking their chances in League One that would never have got taken in League Two. Sort of some of the goals that we can see just come out of the blue from distance, or Callum Stiles scored one for Barnsley the other day that would have been over the stand in League Two. And it's just little things like that. We're just learning to the mistakes, like little mistakes or one moment quality from the opposition, and you're done. And we've just got to start trying to take our chances. But I think we'll be all right. We're doing okay so far, I think.
As I mentioned in the intro, you haven't won since August, but that August period actually looked pretty bright for Northampton after back-to-back wins against Peterborough and Cheltenham. What do you think has gone wrong since that? Because it did seem like quite an optimistic start.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything gone particularly wrong. I don't see us play it. Nothing's kind of dipped from the effort and the application that the players are putting in. It's just been more of a case of those one moments that teams are coming up against us and scoring where it wouldn't have happened before. It's been relatively the same game that we've seen about 8 or 9 times. It just so happens that some games we've got that come out the right side of it, some games have come out the wrong side of it. So we're consistent and we're putting in good performances, but it's just those fine margins at the minute that we're struggling with.
Well, no, absolutely. And I suppose Northampton are a club that we at Exeter know all too well in many ways. I'm sure you remember the last time.
I can't think what you mean.
But there's loads of occasions where we've come together when things matter most, I guess. We were having a bit of a promotion party at Sixfields whilst you lot were playing for a chance to get into the automatic promotion places back in 2022, it would have been, I think.
Yeah.
It ended 1-1 that day, but we also played each other. Yes, I'm going to mention it, in the 2020 League Two playoff final where Northampton won 4-0, but I'm sure our listeners don't really need reminding of that. Are Exeter a club that you enjoy watching your team play against?
I mean, they're one of my more favourable teams, I'd say, favourable clubs. It goes back to a couple of times I'm going to age myself now, but in the 90s where you were going out of business. At one point, you were bottom of the league, and I think you only stayed in the league because Macclesfield's ground wasn't good enough or something like that. And the Exeter fans were on the pitch on the last game of the season at Sixfields, not in an aggressive way or anything. It was more to kind of protest against what was going on at your club, and our fans applauded you, and some of our fans went on the pitch. And it was the first time I'd seen a pitch invasion where you've got 2 sets of fans on the pitch just shaking hands, and our fans being okay with you being on our pitch and sort of us trying to support what you were doing. There was another time when we were coming back from I can't remember where it was. I think it must have been Torquay in the 2000 when we were promoted, and we saw some Exeter fans, and you were all congratulating us. So it always seems to have that kind of reasonable connection and friendly connection between the clubs, and there's never been any issues with Exeter. It's always a really good away day. I always enjoy coming down to Exeter. So yeah, enjoyable trip, enjoyable club to play. And I think we kind of cut from a similar mould in terms of the size of the club as well.
Next up then, Exeter City host Northampton Town, again, at St James Park in a 3:00 kickoff. You mentioned that Northampton have come close in a lot of games so far, coming either side of a result. But how are you feeling ahead of this one?
It's difficult. We've come off the back of 3 defeats now in a row, and the Derby win carried us through quite a lot. But again, we seem to be playing pretty well. Exeter's going to be a really tough game. You've got all the jubilation of Tuesday night that you've had in the EFL Cup against Luton, and depending on what happens in the draw tonight as we speak, there might be an even better atmosphere than there usually is. I know there's a great atmosphere already with the Big Bank, and the teams won't like to come down to Exeter this season, I don't think, especially the bigger clubs. We potentially, because we've been there quite a bit, won't be impacted by it as much as bigger teams might be, if that makes sense. But I don't know. It seems like it's going to be a really difficult game. I think I'll take a point if you gave me it now, because I think it's a difficult away game. And you seem to be on pretty decent form. And obviously you've got everything coming from Tuesday to back that up as well.
Let's focus on Saturday then. And if you had to choose one player, who do you think is most likely to cause City some problems on Saturday?
I think Mark Leonard in the middle, you've got to stop if you're going to win, because he gets the ball and he dictates play quite a lot. He's the one player, he's on loan from Brighton, and he's the typical Brighton player. If you think about a Brighton midfielder, you think a Brighton sort of sitting deep midfielder, you've got a picture in your head already of what it's like, and it's exactly like that. And so we're so glad that he came back for a second season, and we think he's thriving in League One. He'll get moves going, and he's the one that's going to make us tick, and we can't really afford to lose him. I wouldn't have thought. Sam Hoskins obviously at the other end will pop up with a goal or two every now and then, on the bigger occasions than this probably as well. He has done, but yeah, those are the two really, Leonard and Hoskins.
And finally, I know that you've said that you take a point, but I'm going to ask you for a score prediction. What's it going to be?
I've just recorded our preview show with the guys from my new football club podcast, and I went out and I don't know why, but during the chat that I got the feeling that it was going to be a really tough game, but I've got a feeling for some reason that we're going to come and nick a 1-0 win, whether it's going to be a case of sort of after the Lord Mayor's show on Tuesday night. Like I said on our podcast, I'm not sure whether Luton counts as a Lord Mayor's show or not, but I've just got a sneaky feeling we might come and nick a 1-0 and run off around the hills, escape somehow. I don't know how, but yeah, I'm going to go 1-0 Cobblers. It's very ambitious, but I'm going to go for it.
Well, I know you don't like looking at historic results, but that might suggest that you might be right. We'll have to wait and see on Saturday, of course. But Danny, thank you so much for joining me, and good luck on Saturday.
Pleasure. Cheers, man. You.
Finally, I'm joined by Matt Riley, an author who has written many books on a variety of football topics. His latest, however, which is scheduled for release next year, focuses on the communities that provide the heartbeats for their local football clubs, including, of course, Exeter City. Matt, welcome to Park Life. Thanks for joining us. You're an author who has written books on a variety of football topics, ranging from kits to football culture in Thailand. Your next book, however, is much closer to home. Kit and Community is going to cover a whole host of English football clubs, but Exeter City Football Club will naturally be one of your key reference points to a well-run community football club.
Absolutely, Tom. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. And I think I had the better of the weekend as a City fan than you did. So interesting that the team City women played against looked like Oxford United. So I was worried at first. Yeah, so I've got to get a book out next June. Very kindly, Rog and Gig Stansfield came to my house, actually, and agreed to be interviewed. And the whole idea about the book is that shirts tell a story. Now, particularly for a community-run club like Exeter City, the story that they tell is about shared values. And the story of Rog and Gig, and as you know, it's been 13 years now since they lost Adam, was inspirational and just an incredible story to hear. And they were very kindly shared it with me. And you might say, well, why is it in a book about shirts? But of course, there's the massive shirt we have at City. And also, Gig was telling me that the shirts that came to them after Adam's death all had a resonance with people. And when I met Rog on Jay's last game, actually, Rog was wearing Adam's shirt from the final season. So I hope that people can see that the shirts that are designed, the shirts that we wear at City, tell a really, really impressive and value-based story.
Yeah, I think that's totally right, and I think it says a lot about the community spirit around Exeter City Football Club as well. Exeter City are a club that put community right at the heart of everything they do. Just last week, you mentioned it, we saw Exeter City women play at St James Park once again in front of a huge crowd of supporters. And I know that you're a big supporter of the women's game. One of your most recent books, Her Game Too, A Manifesto for Change, it documents the rise of women's football with a particular focus on the Her Game Too movement. Do you see Exeter City as a club leading the way in their support of women's football? And I suppose promoting this one club model that both the men's team and the women's team come together and form one entity?
Really, Tom, that's what's inspired me. It's inspired me to give the royalties to my first book, Kit and Caboodle. It's inspired my wife and I, Karen, to sponsor one of the players, Zoe Watkins, the wonderful kind of Paul Scholes of the women's football world.
Great character as well.
Yeah, oh, fantastic. We were very lucky to be given the chance to sponsor Zoe. You know, I think it speaks volumes. I was talking to Taggy yesterday, Julian Tagg, and he was saying that the club have enormous plans for the women's game. And I felt like we've been sponsoring Zoe for about 3 years now. We got in on the ground floor and we saw this tremendous explosion in development and fantastic training. You know, you've got Abby and you've got Aaron, you've got the goalkeeper coach, Gio. They do such a brilliant job. And it's such a privilege to be connected and help in a small way to try and help their development, improve what they've got. But you see that exponential growth. And there's actually a chapter in Her Game Too about the game against Plymouth Argyle, which we won on penalties in October 2021, where we beat them in the cup, even though they were at a higher league than us. So it's such a wonderful kind of energizing thing, Tom, because you can see the tremendous dedication that the women have. And, you know, they're all working full time. They're then having to go and do hard trading with Abby and Aaron, all the others. And I find it just incredibly inspirational. And I'm very glad to support them in any way that we can.
Well, absolutely. And that women's team has also had a new round of investment put into it by the club, of course. Huge new investment that is going to heighten the technological advancements that's being used in the women's team. I already know that they're using heart monitoring systems and all of this technology that look back a few years ago, and that would have only been in place in the men's game. Whereas now it's in the women's game as well. And I suppose that continued investment from Exeter City Football Club, but also football clubs from around the country, will only go to progressing the women's football movement, I guess, onwards and upwards.
Definitely, and I think it's really important for us to realise that what we're seeing at City is not the norm. You know, the great leaps that are made and the great things that Scott and Craig have brought in and everyone's brought into in the committee and Julian Tagg and all these people. This is not standard practice in lots of clubs. Women will often be alienated and isolated. You think about the fact the first team coaches were training the women's team this week. These are incredible things, and we're sort of bombarded by brilliant stories that are coming from all angles, not only about the potentially best team in the EFL, but things like the match at St James's Park, great things that are happening. And again, it's such a wonderful thing to be part of, because we have to be part of the community, because that's the way that we can sustain the club, and we all feel like we're contributing something to it.
Well, yeah, Exeter City is a special club in that regard. Let's focus a little bit more on something you mentioned earlier, which is your new book, Kids in Community, which also features a special interview with the parents of the late Adam Stansfield, of course. Just last week, the Adam Stansfield Foundation announced that Jay Stansfield, a young man that we all know very well, of course, he'd become the new patron of the foundation. A brilliant appointment to a foundation that hundreds from across the Exeter City community continue to support.
Absolutely. I mean, the other thing about that is my wife plays cricket, and we had an event, or there was an event that one of my wife's friends was at, and she said the car park attendant was Jay Stansfield. I couldn't believe it. You know, he does things that are not there for likes and shares and tweets and whatever else. He's there because he genuinely believes in the the ideas of the foundation of supporting education about bowel cancer. And he's such a good character because, of course, he comes from great stock. I mean, you look at Roger and Gig, to have that a 31-year-old child, I've got a 23-year-old son and 20-year-old son, to have to face that and to have the strength that they've had to do such good. It's just so inspiring, Tom. And that's why I've made that the first chapter. I've got a foreword by Kieran Maguire, who is a presenter for Price of Football. And I've got a chapter by a writer I really respect called John Nicholson, who also writes articles for Football 365. But Stano's chapter had to go first. That has to be the first shot across the bows to show how community is so important through shirts, through people, and through the stories that it tells.
Well, of course, it's at the heart of the Adam Stansfield Foundation and at the heart of Exeter City Football Club as well, a marriage that works so perfectly. Whilst we're on the subject of the AS9 Foundation, I believe I'm right in saying that the name of your puppy was inspired by Stano as well. You've got to talk me through that one.
Oh, yeah, it was an unbelievable day, Tom. I mean, first of all, thank you so much to Scott Palfrey, who let me take Stano, my puppy Stano, onto the big bank. Over my my screensaver is a picture of him over my shoulder looking across at the Adam Stansfield stand. But I mean, May the 27th, we'd committed to have a puppy. We didn't know it was going to be born. Went to that Morecambe game. I remember before the game, the big shirt was out, and I've seen that big shirt lots, Tom, at Wembley. The 2 times I've been to Wembley for City, I've seen it when the Stansfield stand was being built. But I touched it for the first time, and it sounds really strange, but it was very emotional. There were grown men who felt like there were plenty of onions being fried nearby. So we had the game. It was very, very emotional. Of course, Jay scored his hat trick, and I was going out with my wife that evening, and I was going to a local newsagent to get some wine, and my wife said, "Someone's beeping the horn at you," and it was Rog Stansfield, and he called me over, and he was wearing Adam's shirt from the final season, and I just thought, "Oh my goodness, Roger, I've just got over the game. Don't do this to me." And he was talking about how that game and that season by Jay really helped them process, even 13 years later, it really helped them process it. So I went to, I said to my wife, I've got an idea for the name of the dog because it was born on that day, it turned out. And she said straight away, it's going to be called Stano, isn't it? So we're so proud that it's called Stano. We live around the corner from Roger and Gig, so they see Stano when we're walking him. And it felt like such a great story. And it's such an unusual story because a lot of people ask the name of the dog and then we tell them the story. And I feel like almost that's spreading the word of the foundation as well as any support that we can give it.
It's such a beautiful story, one that springs out of tragedy, of course. But
yeah,
I suppose it's a great little story, that one. Finally, I'm going to make a reference back to your previous book, Kit and Caboodle. I know that you love your football kits, so I've got to ask you about the special one that City are wearing this season to celebrate 20 years of supporter ownership of the football club. A beautiful new shirt, black shirt, of course, was released with the Exeter City Supporters Trust sponsoring the kit. How pleased were you to see City celebrate their achievement of 20 years of supporter ownership with a special edition kit?
So after the first 2 shirts came out, Tom, I said to myself, I am not buying a shirt. I'm 55 years old. I'm not buying a shirt. And then I saw black. I love a black shirt. And then I saw the design and I just thought, oh no, I'm weakening. And then when I saw it was sponsored by the Trust, I ran in before the first game of the season. And luckily I got it because, of course, as you know, they sold out really quickly.
They did. Popular
yeah, I was
demand.
one of them. Yeah, absolutely. Massive demand. And I absolutely love it. I love the fit. But it's that message because having written a book about football shirts, I've got far more shirts than I would admit to my wife hidden away in the cupboard. But there's 4 or 5. There's actually one by a club called Nairn County where one of their supporters also had died and they celebrated that player through that shirt. There's only a few shirts I absolutely love and are on hard rotation. And this is the one, Tom. And we've just got this wonderful message. And it's just yet another thing, Tom, where you just think, I'm just so proud to be connected to this club.
Yeah, well, no, absolutely. And so am I. Incredibly proud. I think we've got a really special football club. One that, all of these things that I've mentioned in this interview, the women's team, of course, the Adam Stansfield Foundation, the supporter ownership, it really is a special club. So thanks so much for coming on. But before you go, just remind our listeners about when your new book is being released and where the proceeds will go.
So this is a follow-up to my first book called Kit and Caboodle, and that was the book that generated the funds that helped to support City Women. This is going to come out next June at the moment. It may be pushed forward because I have a book out this week that's selling better than we expected, so it may be earlier. But next June, it's called Kit and Community, and the royalties will go to City Women as we get ready to dominate women's football for the foreseeable future. So I know I'd like it to be more, but people who write books will tell you that the royalties are not a brilliant percentage. But I'm just very proud that, for example, Julian Tagg's got copies and Scott Palfrey's got a copy, and it's really nice that people can see I'm trying to support the club in any way that I can.
Well, absolutely. And I look forward to reading it as well. Thank you so much for joining me, Matt. Been great to hear all of your insight on everything that we've covered.
Great stuff. Thanks very much, mate.
That's all for this episode of Park Life, the official Exeter City podcast. Let us know what you want to hear more of via our social media channels, and don't forget to hit the follow button so you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening. Up the City.
He's been picked out. Socks down to his ankle. Picks out Stansfield. That's the hat trick. And that's what dreams are made of.